Hello, you found me. Excellent. My name's Beverly Hills, and welcome to Storytime Online. Here, in my tree house of tales, you can listen to stories from World Book Day's 2011 special £1 books. Your World Book Day token, if you have one, is a ticket to a world of imagination and adventure. Take one to a bookshop today and try for yourself. I've got some amazing stories lined up for you, so let's see who's waiting in the treehouse to read to us. Right, it's time to get jiggy with it. In the latest of the Jiggy McCue series, written by Michael Lawrence and read by Chris Marshall, it's called Evilution, the Troof, evil. Get it?
McCue's the name. Jiggy McCue. I'm called Jiggy because jigging's what I do in times of stress, which means I jig a lot. So what happens to stress me out so much? Well, I'll tell you. It's being chased by a dead goose. It's being victimised by a 600-year-old genie. It's being out in public when all your clothes just disappear. It's having your life and crotch taken over by underpants with a power complex. Well, you get the idea. Stuff like that happens to me so often that I sometimes worry about getting out of bed in the morning. Well, wouldn't you, when you have no idea what's waiting the other side of the door to kick you in the fruit and nuts? I mention this to prepare you for the utterly unbelievable thing that happened on a school trip recently. This time it didn't just happen to me, though. It also happened to Eejit Atkins, who, as well as being in my class at Branting Lane School, also happens to be my neighbour on the Brook Lane estate. And there's something you should know about Atkins. You know, in the stories of Robin Hood, there's this character called Little John. They call him Little John because he's taller than everyone else. It's a joke. Ha ha. Well, I'd like to say that Atkins is called Eejit for a joke too, you know, because he's a genius. But that wouldn't be true. Eejit's as thick as a rhino's backside. Here's an example of a typical Atkins-McCue chat. "Jig," he says, coming up to me. "Yes," I say. "You know that thing?" he says. "What thing?" I say. "That thing," he says. "Oh, that thing," I say, without the faintest idea what he's on about. "Yeah," he says. Then there's this long pause where he stares blankly into space. "What about it?" I say eventually, because the suspense is killing me. "What about what?" he says, glancing at me. "That thing you asked me if I knew." "Don't know what you're talking about," he says, and scoots off. And that was one of our sharper conversations. Anyway, the deal with Atkins occurred on this outing to the Eversledge Hope Museum of Natural History, which no one in our class had heard of till then. "What's an Eversledge Hope when it's at home, sir?" Elvis Bisley asked Mr. Rice on the bus that took us there. It was a surprise to find Rice on the bus. He usually lurks in the gym or on the sports field, but there he was, still in his stupid red tracksuit he wears at all times, even in assembly. "Probably the same as when it's on holiday," he answered with a witty shout. Mr. Rice always shouts. Apart from blowing whistles and lobbing balls into giant hairnets, shouting's what he does best. His shouts were quieter than usual today, though. The reason we decided was that our other minder, a science teacher called Mrs. Bald Eagle, could shout for Eurovision, and he was scared of her. Mrs. B didn't take our class for science, and none of us sobbed too uncontrollably about that because she reminded us of Hitler, only without the joke tash and the stiff arm. "When did you last go to a museum, sir?" Marlene Bronson asked Mr. Rice like she cared. "Well, it's been a while," he shouted softly in reply. "Well, come on, when?" said Bronson, who doesn't like to let a thing go once she's sunk her manky teeth into it. "When you were 40, say?" "40?" said Rice. "How old do you think I am, for Dawkins' sake?" "Well, you're older than my dad." "Well, how old's your dad?" 102, said Hislop. Bronson leaned over and thumped him. Bronson likes thumping boys. It's her hobby. Hislop yelled in pain, "Quiet back there!" That was Mrs. Bald Eagle from the front of the bus. Mr. Rice hunched down with the rest of us near the back. "Keep it down, you lot," he hissed. We might have kept it down too, for a minute or three, if this ear-gutting, semi-musical thing hadn't suddenly erupted nearby. "What is that dreadful racket?" Mr. Rice gasped. "It's me new ringtone," said Eejit Atkins, waving a mobile phone I'd never seen before. "I wrote it myself." "Mobiles aren't permitted during school time," said Skinner, who's just got to become a teacher when he grows up, the toad. "Why don't you put us out of our misery and answer it?" I asked Eejit. "Well, I'm just testing my ringtone," he said. "Cool, innit?" "Cool," I said. "No, Atkins, it's not cool. It's nothing like cool. It's a million miles short of cool, and it cannot be allowed to live." "How could anyone write a tune so tuneless?" said Fiala Kolinsky. "No one but Atkins could even want to write something like that," said another girl. "Eejit's not popular with girls for some reason." "Mr. Atkins," Mr. Rice said, "turn it off now. For the last time, be quiet at the back there," bawled Mrs. Bald Eagle from the front. Mr. Rice hunkered down again. "Please," he begged Atkins. "All right." Eejit stuck his bottom lip out and punched buttons on his mobile. The horrible ringtone went on. He punched more buttons. It went on and on and on. All around him, ears were clasped, mouths were groaned, eyes were rolled. Mrs. Bald Eagle and the kids in the very front seats showed no sign of hearing the ringtone, but the rest of us just couldn't miss it. "How come you can put a personalised ringtone on your phone, but you don't know how to stop it?" Angie Mint wanted to know. "Well, the man at the car boot only showed me how to make one tone," Eejit said. "Car boot? You got it from a car boot?" "Yeah, it was cheap." "I don't care how cheap it was," said Angie. "If you don't turn it off within 2 seconds, it's following your head through the window." Eejit hit buttons again, but the horrible ringtone still didn't stop. "Oh, give it here." Angie snatched the phone off him and started on the buttons, hoping to find one that would turn it off. She failed, but suddenly she stopped buttoning and smirked. "The maker's name. One of the letters is wrong." She held the phone up for him to see the manufacturer's name. Nokia. "Which letter?" said Atkins. Everyone was chortling at this when Angie's jaw dropped. She was staring back at the phone, eyes on stalks. "Jig?" She leaned over, showed me the 4 tiny little words she'd found. A little devil's product. My throat went dry. So did my palms and quite a few other places. I'd come across Little Devil's products before and hoped I'd never see another, and here I was, inches from one on a school bus. "Get that thing away from me," I hissed. As Angie handed the phone back to Atkins, it stopped ringing, even though no one had found the off button. Views of relief all round, the grateful unclasping of ears, ungroaning of mouths, unrolling of eyes. "Mind if it's owned, that thing?" someone said. "More than its owner has," said someone else. "You better not get calls on that while I'm about," I said to Eejit. "No chance," he said. "No one knows me number." "Well, do me a favour, don't spread it around." "I can't. I don't know it myself." With normal service just about resumed, Pete Garrett asked Mr. Rice why he was there. "I've often wondered that," I said. "Why is Mr. Rice here, I say? I mean, what is the point of him?" "Don't push your luck just because you're out of school, McCue," Mr. Rice shouted, quietly so he didn't get yelled at by Mrs. Bald Eagle. "I never had any to push," I said, which was very true. "I mean today, with us," said Pete to the Ricicle. "I mean, we're going to a science-type museum, and Mr. Flowerjew's our science teacher, and he was supposed to take us, and he isn't here, and you are, so why?" "Mr. Flowerjew's in meltdown," he said. "Meltdown?" "His gas bill arrived this morning. He had to go to the doctor for emergency medication." "And you took his place because you were the only teacher not doing anything useful?" said Harry Potter. "How would you like a detention, Potter?" asked Mr. Rice. "Ooh, yes, please, sir. I live for detentions." A round of applause for that. Well, we're easy to please. "I won't tell you again," screamed the Bald Eagle from the front. When the bus eventually drew up outside the Eversledge Hope Museum of Natural History, Mrs. B stood up and ordered us off. When we were all standing on the pavement, she told us to get into twos and stay with our partners. "We ain't got no partners," someone said. "Well, choose some!" bawled our personal Hitler and drag. When everyone started scratching their heads, wondering how to go about choosing partners, Mrs. Bald Eagle grabbed the nearest shoulder and slammed it against the next nearest and pushed the owners towards the museum steps. "Go inside and wait in an orderly fashion." The first pair of partners went up the steps, curling their lips at one another, and Miss partnered two more, then two more, and two more. I was one of those who got a partner he wouldn't have chosen in 3 lifetimes. "No, miss," I protested, "anyone but Atkins." But she wasn't listening. She was too busy choosing the wrong partners for everyone else. We partnered ones were mooching up the museum steps when our unhappy mutterings were interrupted by a tall, ginger-bearded man standing by the doors. "Do not be fooled," he bawled. "It didn't happen the way they tell you in there. I, Remus P. Haversack, have dedicated my working life to unearthing the true causes and spurs of evolutionary change. Read my self-published work, Evilution, the Truth, available from my website, www.eviltrue.com. Take a leaflet, read more." "Silence!" No prizes for guessing who that was. The ginger man shut his beardy trap along with the rest of us. But as we passed him, he pressed leaflets into a few hands, including mine. "What's evolution, Jig?" asked Atkins as we went into the museum. "Don't you remember Mr. Flowerdew wasting weeks of our lives explaining it to prepare us for today?" I said, stuffing the mad scientist's flyer into a jacket pocket. "No." "Well, you were there. Your body was, anyway." "But it's about evil, right?" "No, Atkins, it's not about evil. It's about evolution, not evilution. It's about turning from ape to person. You've got a way to go with that. Look, kid, just because we've been paired off, don't feel that you have to talk to me, okay? In fact, feel free to keep as far away from me as possible today." "Evil," Atkins said. His little eyes were shining. "Cool." My wise words had gone right over his head, probably because the top of it only came up to my armpit. I sighed. It was starting to feel like a long day, and it had only just begun.